Yeah, I have one.
There you go.
Yeah, online transfer and receipt, that's what I was gonna pick up. That's the only way, but the only difference is that you're not telling me that it wants to put more on the receipt or.
How's this, everyone? Can everyone see?
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, cool. So I started recording. So we now live to the internet. Just make sure you know that. Text voice, but only because this way on. So Greg won't be here today, so I'm going to play mini Greg for a second. Just welcome everyone to the NovaLUG. And as always, I always happy to see people showing up, particularly when we have new people. Let's get all the input. We have Dan Lauer today. I think you're on the consulting side, right?
I was on the consulting side. Now I'm on the engineering side.
Now you're on the engineering side. You moved over. Oh,
Yep.
Okay. But he is definitely a subject matter expert when it comes to IPA. So if I asked Dan to start out maybe a little bit light to give some background for IPA, but if you do have questions that are very deep or technical, I'm sure we could have a fun discussion out of it too. But we can also have a high level of, what does IPA have to do and why bother, kind of stuff. From a NovaLUG perspective, I see we've had a lot of traffic lately, and then all of a sudden there was a week where nothing happened. I guess something about election happened and everyone got busy. I'm not sure. I don't know if we have a topic for next time, but remember, I just want to repeat what Greg always tells us. This is, if you have an idea, if you want to learn how to speak, this is a great forum to start out in, and also a great forum if you you're going to give a speech at a conference or for a group of people you want to practice. Hey, why do you get it?
And that's exactly why I'm practicing here.
Right. Yeah, that's really only one, as far as I remember, one reason or one condition for doing a talk class. It has to be open source. It can be somewhere level of relationship to Linux. It probably would be a good thing too. So other than that, the topic is open. So we've had all kinds of talks in the past that really were not technical. Someone that showed how, when they toured South America, how they use Linux to manage the record of all their experiences, even how they reached out and installed it at the different schools to teach them and stuff like that. It wasn't really about technology, but about how technology was used. We've had talks about how we build robots. We've had talks about how things were created for animations. And we've had deep talks and not so deep talks on technology itself. It really can be anything. So don't feel like, oh, I don't know the topic because I have to be an absolute subject matter expert. No, it does not matter. This is a great place to also come and learn, hey, I didn't know about that other tool that is related to what I'm doing. And if you give a talk, maybe that's the way to learn that it's around. So we don't have people signing up for a lot of talks. So that's why we always have this speech beginning to sort of encourage people. New guys, this is a very old group. People know each other. That said, it's a very friendly group. So feel free to come up with ideas. And I would say, even if we had it 2 or 3 years ago, things have happened since then. From my perspective, I would love to hear an update for something, even though recently, we're talking about a group that is more than 20 years old, right? So recently, 2 years, couple of years ago, it will be good to have a good new idea on what's happening. There's a lot of new stuff in IoT out there. There's a lot of new stuff around containers, provisioning, managing of that. There's a lot of new stuff in how we actually use IT in the cloud. We can have all that up as if you want to have current topics, and if you have something cool that you're working on that really are not something that is something people know about and know would be something that you can use Linux for. Those are also great topics to have. Where people go, wow, I didn't know you could do that. I didn't know that was possible. Particularly if you can go and say you no longer need this very expensive tool. You can do that with open source. So with that said, I will let Dan take over, and he has almost 2 hours to talk about IPA. And
I hope I don't bore you by then.
I know, I doubt it. So thanks a lot, Dan, for coming in, and good luck.
Oh, I'm Dan LeBou. I work for Red Hat as a senior quality engineer. I started off in consulting, 2 years in consulting, where I would travel site to site. I was one of their IDM SMEs. I would help install LDAP, central authentication, tie in several applications to their central authentication, get Linux working with AD, Active Directory. If you're not familiar with Active Directory, does everybody know what AD is?
LDAP with the name on it.
Pretty much, but it also has Kerberos too. So there's another thing. So it's Windows versions of its central authentication, and a lot of people run it because a lot of people have Windows environments. Now we can directly authenticate to AD, and we can also do what's called an indirect authentication to AD as well using FreeIPA, and that's what I'm here to talk about. But after my 2 years in consulting, I moved into engineering. I'm actually a quality engineer where I don't write the software code, but I actually write functional tests to test our code. So the developers will go and write something, and then I will write tests to say, hey, this is a repeatable functional unit test for what you're writing. And that's what I do now,
So they write it and you break it.
basically. And if I can't break it, they did a good job.
QE in IBM, right?
QE and IDEA. Explicitly, I work on triple SD or SSSD, the client component. I don't work on the server component. So there's a lot of debate about how to pronounce it. Some people say it's SSSD, which I find kind of, well, it's tough to say, where I'd rather just say triple SD. So FreeIPA is, well, actually, first off, I was trying to gear this conversation, this talk, to the enthusiasts in the home lab, for people who use this stuff at home and play around. Does anybody use LDAP right now or FreeIPA at home? Does anybody use any sort of central authentication at home?
Well, I've done it. I don't use it regularly, but
Okay. About how many systems do people have at home? Okay. Less than 10?
freaking you're not.
Depends on what you're counting, because, when you add in phones and other handheld devices, you hit it. My house, I hit 27.
Okay. Well, about devices that you log into, you have a home directory, or there's a share, like maybe a NAS that you could use the same credentials. And the whole idea behind central authentication is that you have one user ID for all your devices. You log into your Linux system, it's the same credentials. You log into your NAS, it's the same credentials. You log into the SOM server, it's the same credentials. But there's, on top of having the same credentials, you can have quite a bit more. And with FreeIPA, you can manage. I have this slide deck all with an agenda and everything, but it's actually somebody else's slide deck. I'd rather just talk about it. But there are some good diagrams on here that I will refer to because it's nice and pretty. But so FreeIPA stands for Identity Policy and Auditing, IPA. It's the open source project. The downstream project, what's in the RHEL stack, is called IDM, Identity Management. Now, let's hold on. So everybody is familiar with LDAP and what LDAP is. Lightweight Directory Access Protocol. So it's a lot of phone systems that you have at work. And we're talking, IDM is primarily an enterprise solution. You have thousands of users in your LDAP directory that you can manage, centrally manage, that you don't have to go to your tens of thousands or however many computers that you have to change their user IDs and passwords. But traditionally, LDAP would also control, can also manage your shooter's policies, host-based access control, saying, hey, I have a group of users who are my DBAs. And since they're my DBA. I just need them to log into my DBA servers, and that's it. And my web admins, they can only log into the web app. They can only log into the web apps. And the DBAs can control, but the DBAs can only log into the database servers. So that's a nice added granular. It's definitely a nice added access control for your user base. Now, looking at the home, if you have many users, it's helpful. If you want to add a user to your 5 systems, instead of logging in 5 times, you can just add it to one place. Or your 10 users, or if you want to add control to your file share. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but it's annoying to remember several passwords. Here, password for one system, did I forget this one? And like my father, he starts writing everything down in a nice text file, like, Dad, don't do that, please.
What works?
But it's like,
Just give them war games and watch that movie and see why not.
at least I taught him to encrypt it. So now his password file is encrypted. But still, I don't like it. So identity management makes life a lot easier when you have several users and several systems. There's a lot of other devices you can tie into. Applications, your web app, Apache. So if you were talking about WordPress earlier, you can tie WordPress authentication into FreeIPA. So your FreeIPA users can log into your WordPress site, can then you can just be able to comment or be able to manage your WordPress site. But in one place that you have to modify it. So that is central authentication, and why central authentication is really nice in a nutshell. For your traditional, besides sudoers and HVAC, you can also do auto mount. You can manage your auto mount maps now in FreeIPA as well. How many people use auto mount?
I do at work.
You do at work?
Some people say,
I use it in my home lab.
legacy, right?
Then again, my home lab is very different than a lot of other people's. I actually have 2 42U cabinets with 4 HP 580G7s and 3 storage nodes that contain more than 20 drives each node. Because as a quality engineer, as a realistic quality engineer, I try to make my stuff as close to enterprise as possible.
How much is your electric bill every month?
During the winter or during the summers?
Yes. It doesn't balance out.
It's about $50 a month per server. So that's easily 200 on top of my regular bill. But since I share my lab with my friends and colleagues, they do chip in for the bill. So that's nice. Yeah.
I'm not sure if you're gonna cover this, or you're gonna talk about how KBC and PKI and all that works with your IPA product.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
I will. I'm just, right now it's the overall picture,
Yeah.
and I'm going to dive into all the components.
Okay, cool. If it's too high level, blame me. I asked them to start a little high level just to make sure everyone could catch up.
Last time I talked here, I made the mistake of diving into satellite 6 as I made the assumption that everybody was a sysadmin. So that was my mistake. And I'm trying to learn from my mistakes.
That's why you give these talks. I wish I'd been there for that one.
Yeah.
All right. So FreeIPA, you know, it does central authentication. And let's go ahead and talk about the components. There's several parts of it. If anybody's familiar with satellite 5 at all, or satellite 6, or kind of any of our Red Hat products, it's a whole bunch of other products, open source projects, kind of like tied together. So high level, you have LDAP, which is the open source project for LDAP is 389. So it's using the 389 project for its database, which will be this component right here. To make things easier, right, you can substitute some of these. You can you can substitute some of these components like DNS. DNS is just bind, but it makes things a lot easier if you use everything tied in. Right? We have some IPA installations using info blocks instead of bind, where when you join a client to be centrally authenticated, they will have to make its external entry into info blocks for DNS. But if everything's tied in together, as you add the host, it automatically adds it to bind. And then you have PKI certificates. If you want to go and issue certificates to your hosts, issue certificates. Before in version 3, each client had a client certificate, which is no longer the case. We moved away from that model. So it just uses Kerberos now. How many people are familiar with what Kerberos is? How many people use it? Nobody uses it at home, but how many people use it at work? Do you use a regular KDC, or do you use it tied into something else?
I'm not administering it, I just know I have to get in.
Okay, fair enough. So the Kerberos model is like your employee badge, or you're like your building badge. You get issued a ticket, which we're going to get issued a ticket, what we call a ticket, but kind of think about your badge. It's valid for 8 hours. By default, it's valid for 8 hours. So whatever you have access to, as long as you have this ticket, it will go ahead and grant you access. But to help prevent man-in-the-middle attacks, this ticket is reissued every 8 hours. So if the crypto is changed, it has to be a reversible crypto. Because as, hey, here's my ticket, it has to be decrypted. So that's kind of why we have to change it all the time. But the nice thing about Kerberos is there's 3 major things that you can pre-authenticate. So since you have your ticket, here, I'm NovaLUG, I have my ticket. I can go and then access a service. So if I have a Kerberos web server, then when I use Firefox to access this website, it will go ahead and take a look at my Kerberos cache, my Kerberos ticket, and see, okay, you are granted access, and it'll let me in without a password. You don't have to type in a password since you already have your badge, you already have your identity.
Your badge is your password, so to speak, right? That is your access grant.
Absolutely. So you can do this for services, you can do this for NFS, you can do this for web, you can do this for Soundbot, you can do this for SSH. There's so many services you can do this for DNS. And all the internal authentication for our product, for FreeIPA, is Kerberized. So you don't see passwords, you'll just see, here's the Kerberos ticket, here's the Kerberos identity, the key tab. So there's a difference between a key tab and a ticket. A ticket would be more of a daily badge, where a key tab is a file identity for a service or a host. So going back, there's 3 things you can pre-authenticate in Kerberos: users, hosts, and services. So I can go ahead and put a policy in saying, hey, this group of users or this user can log into this host or can log into this service. And it comes in handy when provisioning too. If you wanted to, I got stung last time for the provisioning talk. How many people use Pixie boots to self-deploy and install their systems? And how many? Not many? Okay. But say if you want to go ahead and deploy 1,000 systems, you can use an identity, a Kerberos identity. Go ahead and register your host to IDM. So you don't have to sit there typing the password over and over again. Just it can be tied into the start to the installation script of your provision for provision. But with the PKI component, you manage your CA. How many people know what a central authority is? And you know how to issue. So you have your own CA built in. And you have your own established trust built in as well. And the whole model is you have one master server, then you have another master. It automatically replicates. So you can, I think now it's up to 60 replicas you're permitted to have. So on a grand scale, on a huge enterprise level, you can have 60 of these replicas, which is 100% supported by Red Hat. Before it was 20, but now it's 60. And of course, this is what we've tested. There's no actual physical limitation on how many replicas you can have. It's just what we say, this is our stamp of approval. You can do 60. More than that, we're not sure we can support it. So this at a high level is the server piece. Now, when you register clients, it doesn't have to be a Linux client, it can be a Unix client. And in some cases, you can use Windows to register a Windows client, but that's a whole other, that's kind of you're opening a can of worms there because it's only authentication and not user management at that point. So let's say I start my first IDM server, my first IPA server. You have a nice user interface where you can create users, you can create your groups, you can then start registering hosts. It's a simple CLI command, IPA client join, or IPA client install. It will then discover your LDAP servers, assuming that it uses SRV records in DNS. So this is the assumption that when you install this is your primary DNS server. You point your client to the DNS, and it has these records called SRV records. They're discovery records in DNS. So you can have LDAP discovery records, you can have Kerberos discovery records. So when an LDAP request comes in, you're you don't have to do any of that. All you have to do at this point is enter your credentials, and then it'll fully register. When it registers, it will add an entry in LDAP. It will add an entry in the KDC in Kerberos identity, adding a host entry, and it will configure SSD, the client piece. Now, a lot of people, when they configured LDAP before, SSD has its own PAM module. It's designed to be the only PAM module you need at this point. You can authenticate LDAP on its own. You can authenticate AD. You can authenticate Kerberos. You can authenticate. You can local proxies. You can keep different database locally. There's a lot of features in SSD. And to make it even better, we've included a better cache. Because previously with PAM LDAP, the LDAP authentication module, there was no cache. You would have to use NSCD or some other caching daemon to keep your user credentials there. So it was problematic when you had a laptop and you took it off site, then you couldn't log back in because there was no cache. So SSD solves that problem. And I never had much luck with NSCD. Have you?
It cost me, this is why I don't have a lot of hair up here, but I made it work, but it wasn't easy.
So
is everyone along so far with why we're doing it, what IPA can do, any kind of specific access patterns that you may be looking for, or how things are done? This becomes very technical very quickly, with all kinds of certificates being exchanged and verified.
So one of the things for me that was a little bit tricky is like, how did FreeIPA implement the 389 server? Like, what role is that really providing within FreeIPA?
Okay, the 389 server is a database. So all the information that FreeIPA stores is inside 389. User identities, Kerberos identities, certificates, everything. It is the database that FreeIPA uses. There's no extra database piece. So all your DNS entries, if you ever start trying to take this apart, you're trying to take a look at all the components, and you'll take a look at bind, the name.conf, and see, hey, okay, there's no master zone file. Where is it? it's actually contained inside of 389. And there's a pointer saying, here, this is the Kerberos identity I want to use to access 389 to get that data.
Am I correct? My recollection about Port 389, the project, did not have Kerberos. It was purely LDAP,
It's
right?
purely LDAP.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I used 389 for years, and I was trying to understand how FreeIPA was really leveraging it, right? Because I could see the daemon running, but like as I started digging into it, I was like, okay, what are they really using it for? Because they're not interfacing using the 389 server interface.
But you can, the LDAP is still there, but,
Okay.
so this is what Dan is talking about, is there's really no reason to do it.
If you want, and I access the 389 database all the time, make changes that changes aren't there. Like, there's a couple things if you wanted, if you're familiar with 389, there are times that you might have had to create your own object classes or your own schemas.
Yeah.
You can still do that. You just be sure that you know what you're doing. You're editing in the back end, and sometimes if you modify the schema incorrectly, it won't start up. So all that stuff can be done. You can still use your directory manager to go ahead and log into the backend database and do all your modifications there if you wanted to. But it's much easier for your standard stuff to use the COI or the GUI.
By the way, just before everyone, when we're all done, we need to have everyone sign in with their name. I mean, we don't need IDs like emails, anything. We just need you to sign by your name that you were here. So if at some point you need to leave before time or something like, just make sure you go up and sign before you get out.
So how do you want to handle questions? I've got a whole slew of questions. I would really break up the flow of your presentation.
I'm absolutely fine with that. I like an interactive conversation, or keeps me on my toes.
Okay, well, I've got all Linux computers at home, but with the environment I'm familiar with in a work environment is with Microsoft's domain structure and an Active Directory.
Okay.
Is there an equivalent between their domain and a domain controller and what you do in
It's
FreeIPA?
FreeIPA.
So FreeIPA runs on a server that's equivalent to a domain controller.
It is. It's often referred to and called the Linux AD server.
Okay.
It serves the same purpose.
It has all the same pieces, all the same components.
Mhm.
And it has your ODAT server, has Kerberos. If you want, it has PK, and you can install an enterprise CA on Windows Server as well. It has that piece. It runs bind. It has all the same components.
Okay, and I mean, one of the things that is very useful from a business point of view in the Windows world, and I don't want to sound like I'm a Microsoft advocate because I'm absolutely not, but quite frankly, some of the things they do right, and Active Directory is one of them. Somebody who is not an expert in all of these protocols that you're juggling can walk into an Active Directory environment and deal with the damn thing. And they really have a lovely GUI to administer it. Is there an equivalent thing for FreeIPA?
We have time for a demo at some point. I'm going to let Dan decide when he wants you to
Yes.
show up.
Okay. So FreeIPA, there is a really nice web interface for you to log in that is kind of similar to AD. It's not a programming side, but it is. Do you have a?
Yeah, I'm hoping you do a demo because I've been trying to play with this. So I've got it up and running.
Okay. I'll make some time for a demo, absolutely. All right. So there's other features that I forgot. I talked about central managed sudo, your sudo policy. Then we all know what sudo is, right? I hope so.
Yeah.
SSH key management. So if you have multiple users, you can keep your SSH key in there. So as the client, if you want SSH keyless access, it'll let you log in with your SSH key to that system. So instead of having your authorized keys, it's also stored in the client.
That's the same idea as AD, right? You have a central location where your user files are. So depending on how you set it up, but it's fairly simple to do. When you log into any box, it's your same home directory, the same security identity on all the boxes, And you never have to sign on to those boxes to configure that user. Once it's set up once, it's there for all the boxes you allow that user to sign on to.
Okay, so now I got a question. Mary kind of answered one question I didn't have to ask. So I got a laptop. How does a cacher sync my home directory from like my central location back to the laptop?
That it does not do.
Okay, so I got set rsync or something.
Set up RSA. For my laptop and my workstation, I would keep, you can override the local home directory for that system. So for all my laptops I carry around, I will have my autobound be /home/domain/user, whereas my local user, which if you can't get your home directory, your system just slows down to a call and just keeps on trying, right? So to prevent that from happening, I just use local, and then if I need to access anything on my home directory, it's just kind of directly.
But you can separate the data on your home directory, your identification information, like your keys, your key stores and all that, will be centrally managed by the IAD. So once you sign on, all of that is available. And you don't have to store that in your home directory. So that also, if someone takes your laptop, it's not located there. It shouldn't be. But you have to sign on, get authentication, and when you SSH to a box, that's where your key comes from. It comes from that central server, not from your local client.
I keep other things like bookmarks, for example. I like to have the same browser bookmarks across all my systems.
Right. Well, there's a file system part of that you may want to do. And there are other ways, I think, from a browser perspective, definitely.
I still recommend for laptops you use a different local home directory, just so that you're not stuck in that situation where you log in like, oh, my NFS share isn't there. Okay, you're just waiting. You're waiting for maybe 2 to 3 minutes sometimes.
Or longer.
So, whereas if it's somewhere else, you have to access that directory.
I noticed the documentation explicitly talks about Rail and Fedora. Will it run on CentOS equally well?
Yeah.
Okay.
How about a Debian system?
Yep, absolutely. I mean, upstream testing does testing for Fedora, RHEL, CentOS, Debian, Ubuntu, and no, Debian, not Ubuntu. And I believe it also does testing on FreeBSD. We support Solaris clients, but they have their own.
So I've actually been running FreeIPA for some time. And one of the things that I struggle with is, and I'm still having issues with, is the schema design from the UI. So like if you have other applications that can leverage OpenLDAP for authentication, it would be awesome if I could see like how you go about making sure those services can talk back to FreeIPA correctly and actually authenticate as FreeIPA out of the box, handles like your group.
So there's 2 ways of doing it. You can do it with Kerberos, you can do it with LDAP. LDAP only would be easiest since you don't have to worry about Kerberos identities, which there's actually, the schema is broken. They added an additional schema for older compatibilities. It's actually called the compact tree. It is only your bare minimum POSIX attributes. But if you go ahead and do an LDAP search and you see all the attributes, you should be able to use any of those attributes as a regular LDAP server. I mean, I have, in my lab, I have Zimbra type in my FreeIPA setup, I have Samba tied up, I have all my websites, I have like AW stats. If I want to go ahead, I have Redmine, and they're just using LDAP authentication. There is one little thing that you might, like anonymous queries are there by default, so you can browse directory. I mean, it is a directory after all. So you say you tie in your phone system, you can see, and without any necessary authentication, who is in the directory. But you can't see any password information, you can't see what group memberships are in there. So that is one thing that people often overlook. Like, hey, I can go and browse the directory, but nothing's coming back. There is a restriction on what attributes are being queried per user. So if you're doing an anonymous search, you can only see the bare minimum. So a lot of times when you're tying into other systems, you have to create a bond user that has a privilege to see what group memberships they're in. So you can authorize them, all right, this is my mail users group. And only for my mail users groups, they can log into Zimbra. Or this is my mail admins group, and they can log into the Zimbra administrator's interface. So that is one thing a lot of people overlook.
Now, I also had a significant amount of difficulty like using a trusted CA through all the services across the board, like forcing LDAP to push everything over SSL, even TLS. So
You're using external CA?
yes, external CA, yeah.
That is still a little difficult. We have making a lot of improvements, but I haven't done that in a long time. I don't know how difficult it is now, but at the time when I did it, I used AD as an upstream enterprise CA, then I used FreeIPA as an in-sub CA, and it worked. But I did have to go through the installation twice or 3 times because there were some things that I missed. I don't remember what they were.
Because like I'll probably say for like most people that are going to be running this in their job, like that now is becoming, a major requirement. So like when I'm in a position where I'm trying to advocate for the use of FreeIPA versus Active Directory, right? One of the first things that come up is like, oh well, it's how easy is it to run?
So the installation
process?
process, I just went through this stuff, but so I changed it, so I'm not using the CA on the FreeIPA, so it has its own right now. But the installation process tells you if you want to sign and have the FreeIPA use public CA and trust that as a trust membership between them, there's a special process you do when you install it to inject that certificate during install. And
So-
then you have that trust relationship when it comes up.
And that will be across for all the services that it provides.
So it has, if you want to change CAs, it has to be done during the installation process. I remember a consultant ran into a bug where the CA, the in-sub CA that it generated was the wrong type of algorithm for AD. So it didn't work. It didn't work in 2012 R2, but it did work in 2008 R2. So keep in mind the only 2 platforms right now that we test against AD is 2008 R2 and 2012 R2. We don't test 2008, 2012. We had to make the list short. So if you're using an untested, sure, it might work, but there's no way that we can say it works 100%. So we talked about SSH key management, group-based policy passwords. So you can change a policy password saying that here, if they're an administrator, then their passwords have to change every 30 days instead of every 90 days. Or they require this many characters. Most people know this stuff. They run into it at work all the time, right?
So one of the things I couldn't find, I can find all these values. I can say how long and how many character sets.
But you did
I
not.
tend to what it used to have a routine where I can say I want this little function to be called to verify that there's no easy to guess sequences and stuff that I could associate. I don't see a way to easily extend the policy to do that. It seems to all be cookie cutter stuff where I can't customize the complexity algorithms that I want to do.
It's only a few basic values, and then I think the complexity, how many uppercase, how many lowercase,
Yeah.
how many digits, how many special characters. I don't think there's any more than that.
I was just looking for a hook and I couldn't find it.
I was curious about your SE Linux there, the user mappings. Is that specific to user mappings or?
It is specific to this user is mapped to this SE Linux user.
Okay, because SE Linux has a lot of things that it does.
It does, but
Yeah, so you're just oriented toward user mappings?
Mhm.
Okay,
It doesn't manage the SE Linux policies locally. That's different.
okay.
But it says when you log in, this is your SE Linux identity. So those policies locally are now, in effect for that.
as long as that user is actually in that policy.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it'll be ignored.
Yes.
It does a lot of stuff.
It has a lot of features, especially for a Linux system. Now, there are ways that you can directly authenticate to AD. SSS, you can do that too. but you are missing out on, this is what we call direct authentication. I mean, it is, as, who has tried to authenticate their Windows, or their Linux machines to Windows?
Say again,
Oh, yeah.
Who tried to authenticate Linux to Windows?
Long time ago.
And who used WinBody?
We do work.
Who used TripleSD?
We're moving.
Not for Windows.
Okay. So back in the heyday, you had NetADS, which a lot of this was written by the Samba team. Now, so we have Samba in the RHEL stack, but they're not. They're another open source team. So NetADS and WinBine were the biggest things. And one of the biggest problems with WinBine at the time was that it did not calculate or generate unique SIDs reliably. So one day you log in, all right, I got this UID for this user, cool. You restart the service, your UID has changed. And it was like, oh, this is aggravating because whatever you've done previously couldn't be done again. You had to change the UID on the files and whatever files you were accessing before. Now, as a RHEL 6 and RHEL 7, TripleSD, we have an algorithm that based upon the range and based upon the range that is generated, it will generate a unique UID and GID that is reliably the same. And using realm D, on RHEL 7 with a normal AD setup, it is as simple as realm joined, and it will discover the domain. You will enter user ID and password for the AD server, restart TripleSD, and then you can then log in as a Windows user. It is really that easy. And I was pleasantly surprised when I was playing around with Fedora 25. Fresh install, I went ahead and said, I have an enterprise login. I typed in my password, my user ID and password for that login, and I was able to automatically, part of the installation process, authenticate as an AD user. And same thing with FreeIPA. So as you log in, the first time you log in, it says, hey, do you have an enterprise account you want to log into? It did everything. So as I immediately logged in, I was like, I didn't have to do any configuration. It was really nice. I was really happy. But there is one thing as well, is that most of the time, TripleSD, since it's geared and designed for enterprise, that it is, you're using the fully qualified name of the user. By default, it uses that. So when you log in, you're typing, oh, dlagu@redhat.com at your host name. If you have multiple domains, it has to be that way. But if you have a single domain, you can go and say ignore and just use it as a regular user. It's because there's no way to, in a subdomain and a multi-domain setup, you can have the same user in multiple domains. How do you differentiate? You can't.
I understand, like at the domain or at secondary domain or whatever else, it's sort of like Windows whack, you know, whatever your group is or your domain is back username. But why the second at machine name? Because you said so-and-so at redhat.com.
Oh, that's because that's the username. The username is the email address.
I understand that, but why then at machine name?
Okay. Yes.
Because the username is not, the at is part of the username, the first one.
So your machine name is your domain.
No.
No, it's
Email.
the domain is part of the username.
Okay, then, as you said, dlagu@redhat.com at machine.
Yes. So dlagu@redhat.com would be my username.
Yes,
And then
I got that.
at the host. At the machine I'm on one
The
log.
first at is part of your username. The second one is.
Oh, it's like SSH whatever at. I got you.
Or you can do like -l dlagu@redhat.com.
I get you. I get you.
So if you go to different workstations in a single FreeIPA domain,
You can log in as the same user.
you log in, but the suffix has always got to be the name of that workstation, and that changes from workstation to
No, the
workstation.
domain that you're logging into.
So with this is so the app that the long username is for AD setup. For FreeIPA, it's still just a short username. since it's one domain.
Think of it like logging into email. Doesn't matter what machine you're on. You're still using the same user ID and you're still addressing the same target on the end, regardless of what machine. Same thing applies here. You're using a user ID and you're telling it that you're needing to authenticate an endpoint.
I think the complexity here is that we're adding more than one domain managed on IPA, and that makes the login.
Well, it's not IPA, it's AD. I'm talking about direct AD authentication.
Okay, but you have FreeIPA has its own domain, and then you have the AD as a different domain. So you have two domains at the very least. So you have two
Well,
realms you deal with, right?
So you can do that. You can, SSD can support multiple domains. So you can have FreeIPA and you can have your AD domain and two separate user bases. You can even do another LDAP one. But I'm specifically talking about direct. If you have AD and that's all you have, and you want to authenticate Linux, it's really that simple to do. Realm, join, it should discover, type in your user ID and password, and you're already authenticating as an AD user to that host. So
He was taking IPA out of the stack.
yeah, just for
I mean, it's been 10 years since I've done domain logins on Windows, so I can't, but I seem to recall that there was no workstation where I didn't have to specify the domain, even though there was only one Windows domain. I still had to put that on there, because that was,
Yeah.
the moment that workstation became part of a domain, that third line appeared in my login screen, right? I had to pick my domain.
Yeah, I understand having to pick your domain up. What I didn't get was user at domain. I understood that part, but then at machine, and then I realized, well, I do the same thing if I had RDP to machine anyway. It's just two separate steps. Because I have to
I'm not sure I
RDP.
got that, but that's okay.
I have to
Said
specify
10 years
machine.
ago, and 10 years ago, we did that.
Yeah.
But not now.
I have to
Yeah, well, that's what I'm
specify
saying. I
machine.
know things have
Yeah.
changed, right? And I can't base my,
It's just two separate steps instead of one long string with one command.
some people just they try to log in as an AD user, just try to come the short non-post qualified name, but oh no, it doesn't work. Like in the domain,
Yeah.
then it should work. Yeah.
What does it mean when it says auto membership for hosts and users?
So as you join the IPA domain, if it's a new host, you could automatically add it to a group. Or
Okay, I've got a new box. I just carried it in the door. I plug my Ethernet cable into it. It automatically becomes a member of the domain.
no, that's not what. So let's say you have 10 hosts that you want to add, or you have 1,000 hosts that you want to add. These are 1,000 new OpenStack nodes, Nova nodes, where you want to add them to the Nova group. But instead of going there after each installation and each setup of a client, you'll then select here, add to the Nova group, add to the Nova group, add to the Nova group. This is saying, hey, as these join and they're part of this subnet, or they have this in their host name, they're part of the Nova group automatically. So there is less administrative overhead when configuring
a new machine.
a new machine.
So this assumption is that the person who's doing that has privilege. This is not just,
But you have to have privilege to join to a domain. You have to
Absolutely.
have
So-
something that can do that.
so that's the assumption that I'm doing it as a privileged access.
Yes, there are, like for Satellite, when you join, so Satellite 6, really awesome product, it does a lot, it's a big product, but
What am I?
that's putting it lightly.
Yeah,
Like FreeIPA is probably one of the smaller products since like Satellite 5. FreeIPA you can get out working in a week. Satellite 5 you can get working in a week. Satellite 6 and like OpenStack takes weeks. But
We're still going on a year later. We're not done yet. Peter knows my thoughts.
but Satellite 6 is a provisioning system, it's a patch management system, and you can have it provision a VM or provision a Pixie boot a system, and part of the installation, which is embedded into Satellite, is here, join FreeIPA. So as this system gets installed, it automatically joins FreeIPA. But the privileged user account that it has can only join, and that's it. So it is a key tab, no password. So all they do is they're join. They can't delete, they can't remove. So as part of this provisioning cycle, it is a privileged account, but that's the only thing it can do. It can't search, but it can only join.
you don't want to give the super admin access.
Yeah, you don't want to, here, root access, join. In fact, I I found a really gnarly bug actually in OpenStack with LDAP information. So I was playing around with it. And so there is a OpenStack, who's familiar with it, or anybody know what OpenStack is? Okay, so OpenStack's like running your own Amazon EC2 in your lab. But you can tie it into LDAP. And part of tying into LDAP is giving it read and write access. So I made the mistake of giving read and write access to my lab at home. And then I removed the tenant network, which is the LDAP backend. And when I removed it, I didn't think about it. Like, okay, let me just go and remove it. Let me go ahead and start this over again. But part of the installation process, it actually deleted everything out of my LDAP directory since I gave it write access. So I was like, no user found. Which user am I? Oh, it's on my workstation. Like, and that was, hey, I test things. I found this bug. They addressed it. Like, okay, we're taking this feature out.
Have a big warning sign instead?
Or at
Are
least,
you sure you want to do this?
at least something. And the whole operating system, you give the power itself to go and destroy everything. So it just at least a nice warning would be nice. But going back to your question, it's when you're adding something, it just automatically adds it to a group or adds users to a group.
So FreeIPA can be used with OpenStack as an authentication?
Yes, actually it can.
Okay.
But it is, I think the limitations right now is you can only do it for one tenant. So if you have like, hey, this is one tenant, one company, you can tie it in FreeIPA. That is,
A dev shop.
that is what I played around with about a year ago. I know a lot of things have changed.
So you can do it with more than one tenant. You just have to have network isolation and neutron. So if your particular tenant is going to talk, you have to have another FreeIPA server for that tenant space, for that network in neutron, and they shall not talk. If they talk
Okay, so,
anywhere,
so
it's
for
gonna
each
be a
tenant, you have your own IPA.
yeah, it's all subnet. Yeah.
That's what.
So,
Not your typical home system.
not your typical home system. But you know what? I had running my own for a little while. It was interesting. Each of my HP servers at home has 256 gigs of RAM. So I was like, one node's dedicated OpenStack. I learned a lot. Wasn't sure I wanted to learn it though. Oh yeah, there's also two-factor authentication, which is actually added to FreeIPA. So everybody has used two-factor authentication before?
Yeah.
Free OTP, you can go ahead and set it up. It's kind of an all or nothing deal right now where, here, enable free on OTP, just download the app on your phone, get the QR code, and you'll require your username, password, and your token to log in. Yep.
So is there actually, can you buy the tokens?
The physical tokens?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. You can buy them and assign it to your own system.
Yes. I think the UB keys you can use for FreeIPA.
Okay.
But most, the companies that I know, most people, I have a token, I don't think I've used it for 2 years. Most people that I know use their phone.
Yeah, but the nice thing about this is this isn't relying on a phone.
I get that, but I have my phone with me at all times. That's the issue. Most of the people, unless I'm in a spiff or something where I can't have that, and that's what I have. And spiffs, you use that cat cards or something else instead with physical security in it anyway, right? I wouldn't use tokens. There are other ways to get it. And the cat cards are supported too, as far as I remember. That's
Yes.
the same protocol.
CAT cards are now supported as 7.3. So if you're military, you can actually use CAT card authentication for your systems.
But everyone that I know always have their phone right beside the computer. And that's where they get the tokens from.
Okay.
And generally, if you can't have your phone inside your spiff, they won't let you get outside the network anyways.
That's true.
So with like CAC or PIV, what do you do if you have multiple different intermediate issuers?
You know, that's, I don't work on CAC, so.
That's resolved per organization, because it's driven by need, right?
Yeah.
So if the organization does have disparate systems that you need to like simulate a single sign-on,
Yeah.
then they will do that as a solution. Otherwise, they won't. It has to stay separate.
My bigger problem at the moment is we have an agency that started issuing them one way and then changed who the issuer is midstream. So we got different people with at least two different kinds of issuers for the same organization.
You got to phase out the old one.
Yeah. I'm not telling my VP that, he's got the old one.
All right, so it's still warming up.
Yeah.
So that was funny. When we got here, it was turned on, which means it's been turned on at least since yesterday, and not turned off by itself. And now we start using it, and now it's been off by itself.
Yeah. So while he's trying to resurrect that, another question for you. You
Yeah.
mentioned you can put, have DNS in there, right? In
Mhm.
NDA. I just had to write a script to do DNSSEC certificate signing for stuff. How do you handle that?
DNSSEC should be part of that.
Okay, DNSSEC
It's all built in.
and auto regenerate certificates every like 30 days, whatever.
So that's one of the reasons I've heard people say that they prefer to use DNS and FreeIPA. I'm not personally jumped onto that yet. I prefer to have my mind separate.
All right, I can't get,
It doesn't
for
seem.
some reason, Red Hat loves to block my VPN to home, so I can't actually get to my.
Well, that's coming. Now it's coming. Took a little while.
So I can't get,
I can show, I have a free IP you can go to, but I don't have an account for you, but I can,
in fact,
I can show, I mean, I can log on yours to a free IPA and give it, but all it does is usernames. It doesn't have any
That's-
kind of certificate stuff
I'll take
going
your word
on.
for it, I was curious.
no, I want people to see free IPA. You mind if you have your free IPA set up?
Yeah, he's got it.
You want to show yours?
There's no clients connected to
It
it.
doesn't matter. It just, so people can see the interface, like, here, this one.
Yeah, I have clients on my, oh, that's fine. Go ahead.
Oh, yeah.
Just-
the configurations.
It's already an hour in. I do want to give a small demo, but I can't get into my VPN from here.
But, yeah.
They seem to be
I can
blocking it.
I can show it, but and I have one with clients on it too, probably.
But first, let's quickly go through this. I mean, there's one more topic I'd like to touch on that's really cool. So you can see here, on the left side is the free IPA stack. You got PKI, DNS, LDAP, KDC. By the way, I forgot to mention that the PKI, the upstream project, is DogTag. So if you ever heard of DogTag, that's a PKI portion of it. And KDC is just KRB5DC. I mean, it's been in use for a very long time. So as the Linux system, you have triple SD that does authentication identities, and then you can see the name resolution goes to the DNS piece, certificate and keys goes to PKI, and then as far as the policies, it's all contained in FreeIPA. It still remains on the system. All the stuff is locally cached.
You can choose whether you want it to be done that way.
Yeah,
You doesn't have to.
choose if you want to have be cached or not. And in some environments, if you take the laptop out, you want everything to be locked down. And a lot of times on servers, there's no.
So in that picture, where would you put the authentication that you need to put in, like say for Apache and services that you're running that gets the key?
So like any other services will be out here. Will be out, or all right, let's say on this Linux system we're running Apache. We have to decide which Apache module we want to use. There's a couple. There's a newer one, which is mod GSS API. You can use mod LDAP, mod auth LDAP. I think it's
Off end or something like that? Yeah.
there's auth end and there's auth. There's a couple of
Yeah.
variations of it. But the PAM or the patching module, first off, GSS API is Kerberos, so it's, if you have a ticket, it'll automatically let you in. And it works really well. It's by far one of the best Apache modules I've used in a long time. But if you have your Kerberos ticket, Firefox will detect it and will let you into the website without any credentials. Mod LDAP was your regular LDAP module. You'll say this group is permitted to log into the web server, and I'll prevent that group. But keep in mind that there's a couple things with LDAP. I mean, there's some people make the mistake of not encrypting LDAP communications because LDAP encryption requires good SSL, a valid SSL. You can ignore the SSL, but still, there's also LDAP as an SSL. Start TLS and LDAP as. So Start TLS is optimistic, it comes in on the regular unencrypted port for the initial communication, and then an upscale to an encrypted connection. Whereas LDAP-S is often encrypted the entire way through. And I'm sure if people run their own mail servers, they've seen LDAP-S or they've seen Start TLS and SSL connections. They're two different things. But Apache, it's just like any other module.
Which one is recommended, like for like a production environment? Would you recommend?
I would do GSS API. It was written within a year by CMO, and it's awesome. It's so much easier than anything else out there right now. And it's Kerberos, but if you can also set it so if you don't have a ticket, you can use password auth as well.
But like so how does that relate between LDAP-S and Start TLS?
It doesn't. It uses Kerberos for the encryption.
Okay.
It completely negates SSL and PKI for the encryption. So you don't have to set up your CA, you don't have to do any of that. You just say, this is my realm, this is the identity that I want to use, and you're good.
What was that again?
Mod GSS API. So kind of talked about direct authentication, which is just SSD 280 directly. What we have, you can see here in this diagram, you have Active Directory, DNS, LDAP for KDC, Linux. Well, this third-party client.
You're looking at Windows version.
Yeah. Okay, this is what I want to show you. He was Dimitri Powell, our chief architect when it comes to FreeIPA. This is his slide deck. But here you can see Active Directory, DNS, LDAP, all the components that it uses. But there is one nice feature that I helped work on, was that if direct authentication, you can actually use 80 GPOs to determine who can log in, who can log in as host-based access control. So part of your group policy in AD, you can say, this group of users can log into this host. And there's a difference between logging remotely and logging locally. So allow local logins, and then there's allow remote logins. Allow remote logins equates to SSH. Allow local equates to SU, or just SU. So if you can, but the only thing that I don't like about this is the way AD GPOs work is an entire override of the keys, their keys. So if you have a domain policy saying this group of users is allowed to log in, then you have a site policy, or you have an OU policy, which overwrites the domain policy, saying they're not allowed to log in. It's a total rewrite. So if you were missing administrators on the domain policy or on OU policy, but you had the administrators on the domain policy, they would not be able to log in. It does not append to the existing list. It just overwrites the list.
Yeah, speaking about Microsoft AD,
Mm-hmm.
global normally overrides local.
Local will always overwrite. And
That-
no, sorry,
Not online global overrides local.
wait. It's site domain OU. No, local site domain OU, right?
Yeah, but in the other way, because when you push a GPO, no matter what you have locally, it's gone.
Yes. So I wasn't talking about local, I was talking about the highest in the hierarchy, the highest that takes precedence is OU.
We're just in conflict with the whole, that's the thing.
No, but
I'm saying it's the other way. Because I can create a machine, build it, establish my administrative password on it. My account is part of the domain account. And when I add it to the domain and that domain pushes a GPO, it can remove me out of that.
Yes.
And that
The
means the
local-
global overrides local.
The local policy is the weakest.
Yes.
And I believe the second to weakest is site, then domain, then OU.
Yes. Well, you see, you keep using the word OU, and that's what's throwing me off.
And the OU policy is if you have a group inside a domain.
Yes.
So, yeah, it's more importantly, it's a total rewrite. So you can't, if you have one group that's permitted in the domain, and we'll have to check, but assuming OU takes higher precedence than domain, then whoever's that entire policy on the domain level is completely gone. It just applies what OU. Right? Like with our host-based access control, it's actually it actually appends to the list. So you have IPA admins across the board, and then it keeps on adding to the list, and then it takes away from the list. And I found out when I was playing around with it, I was like, okay,
What is that a good thing? I mean, my security side is going off with bells and whistles saying that's
Well,
not a good thing.
taking out, so if you explicitly say, these don't have access, that should be trumping anyone granting access.
yes.
That's what I think is what he's saying is the sequence of when those rules are they applied. So if your global policy says that local admins should not be able to do wax, then that should be applied anytime. And even if the local policy explicitly grants it, it will still be taken. It's just a matter of how do you implement your updates.
Oh, okay, so you're just saying, okay.
I'm just saying it appends to it.
Oh.
Like,
But when it does append, if there's conflict,
it will deny.
Yeah, the remove always comes in at the last, so the remove will win, right?
okay,
So even though you added it as a positive early on, it will be taken out with a negative later.
okay.
Sorry.
And that should be the way, so if you deny, that should trump anything similar. If there is a conflict.
Yeah,
But
so-
what
so
he's
in other words-
saying is that if you have, it's a global policy that has specific for one group and a local for another group, that local other group is still permitted access if the global one did not override it.
Yeah, but it doesn't replace, and that's the main thing you're saying.
Yeah, it's like,
Okay,
there's a logic, there's a hierarchy thing. If you can do something like here, on these systems, on these test systems, you can add all these groups to it, all these separate groups to have access. Whereas in the Windows 80 GPL, you will have this entire list that it could just be overridden by something else.
You have a pen up there? Yes, I don't know.
All right, so when FreeIPA and Windows integration, there's a couple things where this is kind of cool thing now. For enterprise use or even use at home, you can set up a trust between FreeIPA and Windows 80. So not only can you have a FreeIPA domain for your Linux users, you can have another domain for the Windows users, which is kind of cool. So in an existing AD infrastructure, you have 1,000 Linux systems. You can set up FreeIPA, and both Windows users and FreeIPA users can log into those systems.
Isn't that the common, I thought that was the common installation. You wouldn't go in necessarily just use the AD. There was always, aren't you doing this because you're eventually doing a migration? Why would you have FreeIPA if all you want to do is pass through to AD and not do anything with
Because you have more control with FreeIPA. You have, I mean, sure, you can go to manage sudo as an AD, but there's no tool to go to manage it. You'll have to be doing LDAP modifications to go to manage the list of users. Whereas FreeIPA has automount, all the features like SSH keys, everything built into the user interface. It's a lot easier to manage. And a lot of times people would want a separate team. Like, here, this is the AD team, this is the Linux team. You want to give the Linux team access to AD? Not usually, right? It's usually a separate team. It gives you the segregation of saying, hey, these are the Linux users, this is the Linux admins, they're managing FreeIPA, or these are the Windows admins, they're managing AD. So we still have absolute control of what systems the Linux admins can manage. And that's a nice way to segregate user access, user control, and maintenance. And of course, the Linux admins are going to, hey, this host, do we need this guy have access to it, or what kind of sudo policies? It's not all maintained in AD. There is, so the trust is really cool. I mean, it's a way where I think hopefully in 7.4 or 4.2 we're going to have IP to IP trust. That way you can have another team managing IP for this set of users, IP over here. But that is so one important thing to note about the trust is that everything is not, it's not synchronized at all. It's a referral. So in the IDM domain, you're going to actually have an external user map. That way you can apply your Linux policies to that AD group. And there's another group inside of the IPA, but it's actually an external map. That way you can apply your policies to them. But the authentication still goes through to AD. It's a referral to it. So it's not actually, if you were to ever open up your firewall between the two, it can't just between the two servers. It has to be, the client will have to be able to access AD on the Kerberos authentication piece. All right. Dude, what's your name?
Dave.
Dave. You mind, Sean?
How?
Got a cable.
Well, I'll give you my computer, you can talk.
All right, I don't need you to talk.
It's been acting flaky.
All right. Thank you so much, by the way.
Oh, my pleasure.
See, I'm not the only one having a break when I have my charger.
The work one is a bit of a deal. It's a huge well, I'm not going back to the Mac. It's just suck.
He totally didn't take the bait.
Oh, no, I'll take the bait eventually. Eventually, he tunes back in.
I heard.
One of my favorite stories in World War II is when
You see something? Do you want, maybe you want to share the screen up? So, oh, that's there. You want to get your chair or something, or are you okay sitting like that?
I'm fine.
Send the following signal.
It must be nice to be you.
Confirmation received, shut down your receiver, grab signal, receive call.
All right, so this is the FreeIPA, the main FreeIPA page. You log in. After you log in, you can add users.
And what are you logging into?
A website.
And the website, so the website is running on your IPA server.
And when you install the server, you install a website, basically.
Yeah, it's going to be, it also installs Apache, also installs Tomcat, to go and host a website.
So I assume before this, you authenticated.
Yes, before this, it was authenticated. Let's,
You want to share your password so you can log in, or is this public available?
Well, that's okay. I'll
so,
You want me to log into the CLI for you?
yeah, if you mind. Why isn't there a bunch of,
Huh?
a bunch of Fedora? Yeah, but
I told you it was acting flaky.
Give me a terminal, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Oh, it's
All
at the
that
bottom.
GUI
Oh,
stuff.
that's why, it's at the bottom. You can barely see it. All right. Type in K-list.
It wouldn't matter.
Oh, it's remote, so.
Well, oops, it's a VM. Oh, shoot.
So if I want to check to see if there's a ticket, you can type in K-list and I'll show the ticket. But right now, since he only has one user,
Could you increase the size difference of these?
yeah, sorry.
That's okay. There.
Yay.
So now that he's got his Kerberos ticket, you can see it right there.
Hey, Dan.
Hmm?
It's a VM and I've got a snapshot, so feel free to muck with it.
Okay, thank you. Unfortunately, since this is accessing the VM, he's not going to. We actually can't log into the website without pre-authentication. But you can see the identity here. This is the Kerberos ticket, the realm, at the realm. Sorry, actually, look at the wrong thing. The default principal is admin at davidplanet.org. So this is a user. And from the shell, if I had SSH and Kerberos delegation enabled, I can jump between systems without typing in a password. But now let's go ahead and do this. Yeah, let me go ahead and create a user. Let me create my and do.
So that was a surprise to me. Why do we require first name, last name, and not just a user ID? That was one of my first, what the heck did I just do?
It's a condition on the schema.
Okay,
It's a mandatory attribute. It's a mandatory attribute on the LDAP schema.
that's
Well,
the
and-
reason technically, but why are we making those mandatory?
In the Windows world, the same database that's used in AD is conceptually used in the personnel department and all through other aspects of the organization. And in other departments, they don't talk about your username, they talk about your real name.
Well, yes and no. I don't identify my users by name because I can have more Dave Smiths in the company, but they all have different usernames. So if I want to be sure I can find it, I need an ID, right?
Well, the ID is always going to be unique. Names can change.
Right, and that's another one, but that was, oh, don't worry. I mean, people change names too, right? It's not part of your ID. It just was weird to me that it was actually a mandatory attribute.
So you have your traditional Unix and Unix property, your geckos, display name. These are things that will display in Linux. User ID and GID, that's going to be generated upon installation. You can pre-select the range that you want. Usually you want a range that's not going to conflict with anything locally. So there's a lot of times, like one of the migration woes to FreeIPA is that I have this UID range from like 1,000 to 10,000, and you just want to make sure they don't conflict. And of course, if they did conflict, local user UIDs are going to override FreeIPA. Local, let me rephrase that. Whatever's defined in your NSSSwitch.conf is going to take precedence, but you generally want your local identities to take precedence. In the event that anything was to happen, you can still log in locally.
So then what would you recommend your priority be in your NSS switch?
I always do files SSL.
File search.
Always. And that's your root user. Of course, there's certain users you don't ever want to have conflict.
Right.
Like the root user should not be in FreeIPA.
But you should also make sure it's an alert if someone creates a local user. That should not, if you are using this kind of access scheme, there should be never a need to create a local user for an end user. I mean, for a daemon like Apache, and use it with no login as the bash. as a
So you
script.
say that should never happen?
I mean, if you are in a world like this, like in domain controller, you shouldn't have local users. The whole idea of this is you have central control and management, right? If you start creating local users, you lose that.
I mean, keeping.
What about for like services like Hadoop, right, or?
It is.
Right?
It's preference. At that point, for major services, for services like shared services, Hadoop, backup users, a lot of people want to keep them local, but FreeIPA can certainly manage it. Absolutely.
Yeah, I would say anything you have a service as a daemon, like you will have an account locally, but it's not a login account. It's not managed with access security of where can you log in from, because it's only local, right?
Okay, yeah.
So if that's only local and needed for that reason, but if you have an account where you need to synchronize security across boxes, that's where this would make sense to set it up in here, so you know they have the same ID and all.
Yeah, because the only thing I think about is like, you know, this gives you quick scalability on creating those accounts.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, even if it is for, you know, if it's for a service, like, the reason why I'm thinking like Hadoop, like, you know, for.
Oh, you have thousands of nodes, and that you want to.
You want to be able to quickly get those, you know, that user out there, right? Now for like, maybe for Apache or something like that.
Actually, you know, you can now pre-populate the cache for those types of situations too.
Oh, really?
So if you want to make sure that you have these 1,000 systems that are FreeIPA authenticated, you can go ahead and deploy a cache upon provision that already contains your username and password.
Does that get done through the Kickstarter process?
That does gets done through, there's an SSSD CLI that you can export and re-import the users. So that is definitely one. And we have a customer that in the very same scenario, they have a huge Hadoop cluster over probably 5,000 systems, but they would spin them up on demand. So sometimes they would have 1,000 systems coming up and trying to authenticate to FreeIP,
Slamming everything.
and it would just wham. And it, of course, and that pre-authentication was one of the ways that they requested a feature request, like, hey, can we go ahead and pre-authenticate it so that the IDM system does not get slammed. There's something, based on their design, that was just one of the things that they had to deal with. So as you can see, and it's pretty nice. It's a nice interface, a lot better than your old 389 interface, which is what, written in Java Swing. Job title, all the information I can put for a user, what user groups they're in. So right now I'm in IPA users. I can add myself to administrators. And I'm clicking on the wrong button. So now I have full access to this IPA server. Net groups for traditional NIST compatibility. Roles. So there's roles and permissions that you can add to. Right now I have the admin role, but you can create a role, for example, the Kickstart, where you can only register hosts.
I mean, those are system roles, right? System access.
System access, what things they can access. So if you take a look, user groups, since there's only one host registered, there's a FreeIPA. But as you keep on adding hosts, this list will get larger, and then you can organize them and say, this is a group of database servers, this is workstations, these are the lab systems.
Registered means join the domain equivalent.
They're known by their domain, trusted by domain.
So each time a system gets joined, it creates a Kerberos principal that is trusted. It creates a DNS entry for it, so it knows where to find it. And you can set it up so it is dynamic. That if it's part of a pool, a new IP will come up and they'll update DNS for you. You don't have to keep it updated. And it can also manage your PTR records as well. So this part is kind of interesting. You can see here, these are your service principals. So as far as the IPA server is concerned, there is a DNS principal, there's an HTTP principal, and there's an IPA DNS key sync and OUTAP principal. And principals are always defined by what the service or host is the server or identity of it. So in this case, this is a server, FreeIPA dataplanner.org. This is the service, and this is the realm. And realms don't have to be the same, they're just another, and traditionally, people make the assumption that realms and domains are kind of the same thing. They are, but they can be different. It's not set in stone. So I could have this FreeIPA server manage multiple domains. I can have it, if I want to add another zone file, like I'll do danlavu.net, and I can have it manage that. This FreeIPA server can manage danlavu.net as well at dataplanner.org. So these are the HBACs. If I want to add an HBAC, I can do.
Is anyone interested in seeing this from the Linux prompt perspective, how the configurations are done? And Dan is doing this as SD, but the triple SD, I've never heard it called that.
It's better than SSSD.
Why do we have three as SD? You can actually, when you look at a host, I remember before SSD, how tough it was to set up a host use all that. I mean, one of the things I love SSD for is how simple it's become. But it's actually using the same components. So if you're going to look at a host of how does it get the identity? I mean, right now, when Dan sets up a password, he can log on to this VM as himself. It's already done and ready. Is anyone interested in seeing that side of it, or do we need to go through all of this?
I think we'll have to check with David if he has another VM.
No, that VM should already be.
That one's already integrated, but it's like seamless.
Right, but you can show how that account you created is logged in without being in password, right?
Are you suggesting that we see how a host would be registered with the server? Yeah, I'd like to see that.
You have another VM?
I don't, but I've got a template. It'll take me 2 seconds to deploy a new one.
So like, how easy is it to change the cipher strength on like all the services? Like if you wanted to say specifically like you're only gonna allow ECC ciphers.
That's a little beyond me.
Okay.
So that is tied to the ID when working with service. So you actually work with key lengths over.
Yeah, but
actual.
But I wouldn't want to do it like to every specific service in there. Like I'm like, is there some global variable that I can just say?
You know, I can tell you
the TLS-COM.
there are times where I've seen the instructions for replacing the CA certificate or updating the CA certificate, and it's not easy.
Not pretty, nope.
So I'm going to make the assumption that you want to change the cipher, fixing the CA.
Yes.
Now, and replacing it, is it just as difficult when the CA expires to update it? Because if it's really, I mean, because that's like something everybody's gonna have to go through that exercise, right?
Well, yeah. This was probably a year ago when I took a look at this. Like, I looked in the instructions, like, no. But I know it's gone easier. Must have. It is a concern where it should be easy to update a certificate.
Yeah.
Especially, I think the default was for 2 years for a little while.
While he's working on this, assuming I've got a Debian host, what software do I have to add to it to allow me to register with FreeIPA?
FreeIPA client.
FreeIPA client. It's already there in the repos.
I mean, this is what sold me on FreeIPA, so how simple it became. I mean, I used to use port 389, and it worked, but man, was it tough to set up.
It's not, if you understand how it happens, it's not tough to set up.
It's tough on a client because I had to do everything by every client. I had to manually go in and do NS switch, set up all the certificates and insert that correctly. Right now, I just want the client set up and imports all of that and sets it all up for me. And that's easy scripted, right?
Okay, now if I have a Windows host, how do I join or register that with FreeIPA server?
I'm assuming there's a FreeIPA client for Windows too.
No.
No.
So Windows is very different. There's I don't fully understand this. I haven't really fully looked into it, but the Kerberos standards are different between Windows and Linux. Like there's Kerberos and there is Hemdall Kerberos. which are different and they're not compatible. For example, there is one limitation with Samba. I know that if you're using Windows Samba to authenticate both, that it will not take in a password. You can only use the Kerberos identity to access your Samba share. But that's mostly a limitation with the technology or the lack thereof at the time. But going to,
So you're using Windows software to go Kerberos,
yes,
basically.
sorry, I lost my train of thought. There's no way to get the identities. So there's two major pieces to like authentication. You have your identities and you have your authentication. So you can say, here, my identities reside in out app, and my authentication is going somewhere else. It's like Google. If you ever use a Google Authenticator on your Linux system, you're saying my identities reside in Linux, but my authentication is going to Google Auth. Same thing with Windows. There's no way to get the identities into Windows. You can set it up so you can authenticate, but each time you want to add a user to Windows, you would have to create a local user. And it's not even a directory user. So it's much better to use 80 in a trust if you want to merge the both.
How would you compare FreeIPA with Directory Manager?
Directory Manager.
Yeah.
Is that the Windows version?
Yeah. Or like, let me rephrase this. So like for Red Hat Enterprise, right? Like what, are you seeing more Red Hat Enterprise environments using FreeIPA, or are they using?
So Red Hat has a directory server too, right on top of it. It's like FreeIPA has its set of use cases, but there's also a directory server and a certificate server separately for large installations.
I'm not like Directory Manager. You're like who makes it?
So there's a couple of different plugins, one that tie in that allow you to use a Windows Active Directory server, and then also have your Linux clients authenticate, right? And there's like a lot of complication whether or not they want to go that way. But like for me, I'm trying to understand like what is FreeIPA giving you that Red Hat Enterprise's directory service is providing? Like what's the big fundamental difference between
the RHDS and FreeIPA?
Yes.
Well, okay. Surprisingly, FreeIPA is already in your base sub. You don't have to pay for FreeIPA. RHDS, the report 389, that project, it doesn't have all the pieces. So for larger environments, it is faster. Not only is it faster, but some of the features that RHDS has, like your traditional slave read-only replica, that's not available in FreeIPA. You can't have a read-only replica. So if you only,
all right, it doesn't matter.
if you want to have LDAPs or
it doesn't
just
matter when you do.
like in your DMZ when they're read-only,
As rule, you can ignore
you
that.
can't
It's
do
just a
that.
warning.
And plus, I've seen RHDS environments as large as 300 million users.
Just do
Yeah, I've
86
seen
and that's it.
large
It's done.
RHDS environments.
Oh,
FreeIPA is
None you
suggested
can ignore
for 20 to 30,000 at this point. I mean, there is, it's a great
You see
product,
anything,
but
right?
I would still not
Yeah.
suggest it for huge installations.
That's good.
So,
I want to get it there, absolutely.
Are you on IRC much?
Yeah, always.
All right,
So.
He's an engineer, man.
I'm
I live
in
on
the
IRC.
channel. It's been kind of quiet lately. I'm on Freenode, but it's
So my RC handle is side underscore control.
side underscore control.
So we're saying
there right
that
now.
FreeIPA is limited in its hierarchical structure.
And the scalability, right now it's definitely designed more for small to medium enterprise. Large enterprise, it depends on how many systems you want. And if you're talking 1 million hosts, I have not seen an implementation that large yet, so I would not be comfortable saying, here,
client couldn't remember.
use it.
FreeIPA.
I've seen RHDS environments that big, and they're stable, they're fast, so
FreeIPA.
I would definitely say,
It's CentOS.
Yeah, so in comparison with the Active
They're gonna
Directory.
make
Because of that
IP.
part,
It's getting information.
enterprise, blah, blah, domain, the hardware structure is what gets it, that scalability, right? Because it's designed to do that. So free IPAs is basically, you can build a great domain, but when you start connecting those domains, building up larger.
We're getting there though, Free IPA is still a newer project. And as of 3-4 years ago. And we started pushing it. And the use of free IPA has doubled, I think doubled this year, which is fantastic. But these are also the things that we're learning, is like, hey, people want to use them. People are trying to use it for bigger environments. These are things that
It's
we're
actually hard for Reddit to know who's using it because it's part of well. It's not like you have to purchase it separately.
Are they using it as, just to have common authentication in a server farm? Or are they using it where you've got an office environment and a bunch of bookkeepers all running spreadsheets with a common
both.
authentication?
Yeah, both. I know NOAA recently, they moved and got rid of all the Windows workstations, so every single person in their office has a Linux workstation. So
You've got free IPA installed, so you want to take over from there or you want to direct?
if you don't mind just typing in, have you pointed
I haven't done anything except put the client in.
The Yum install.
mind changing DNS or resolve.com to point to the free IPA server?
Sure.
Once again, is it possible to make that bigger?
Log on from a.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got to log out of this thing and log in from a SSH.
Yeah, it's fine.
Kudos to you to remember that.
Sorry.
You should wall better rather than just like.
Oh, where?
I think you have some funky going on with your mouse there.
Yeah, I got it flaked out this morning, actually.
Resolve, yeah. Is that DNS open on that box? You know?
Pardon?
Did the firewall open up by
Well, we'll
default?
see and find out.
On this box, the
No,
one I
on
just
the-
made?
Yeah, on the free IPA server you have. Is the firewall opening up to allow DNS?
Hold on.
Yeah, this is easy. Just sit here.
That's the kind of talk you want to do, right?
Yes.
Okay, so now that he's pointing to the right DNS server, all he has to do after installing the package, which is free IPA client. So on the client, all he has to do is type in IPA-client-install.
No,
So
the other
that's the
one, the other
server.
one, the other one, the other one.
Other terminal.
You may want to exit out of that one if you want to avoid any mistakes.
Dash. Did you install the package or no?
You install the package, you need to do the install, like dash install.
No, go and tab the IPA-client and tab it.
No.
No, it
Oh,
should,
no, right by the T, don't have any
Yeah,
space.
He's trying to tap.
Yeah, tap now, and then install.
enter.
That's fine.
So just change your host name to the same domain as the IPA server.
Spell it.
LAVU.
LAVU.
LAVU. And then, huh, well, it's supposed to discover, but you can then type in the domain name of your, forget,
Just the domain name?
sorry, the free IPA server.
Yeah, so I had to I run my DNS separately, and I had to put in those service records, server record myself.
Dan, can you back up on?
Well, can you go into your Etsy result, maybe, because you have both name servers in there. You still have the original uplink in there.
No, it's because I didn't discover first time because the host name was not matching. And sometimes there is something going on with Realm where the discovery is based upon a boot up sequence. It's not.
So exit the shell and log in again. That way you should get the right host name. There you go. Try again.
Install. Nope, just type in the host name, the domain name. Type in the server. Yes. Yes. And your admin user, it should be admin, because that's the only user that was existing.
Oh, that's for the FreeIPA.
And now the password that you had,
This is what I love. And what did, at least my experience is, once the DNS is set up right, it doesn't even prompt you for anything. It just says, this is what I discovered. Do you want me to
let's
proceed?
go ahead and do an ID space dlib.
Space what?
Dlib, my user ID.
Delabo.
I don't think you,
There you go.
oh, wait a minute.
You create a user.
Yep.
So now, as you can see, it should self-discover. There are DNS maybe might not be configured correctly or something else that's going on, but it's as simple as IPA client install. Now I have access to, all the users have access to that system.
Dan, what'd you make the password?
It was ASDF.
But it needs to be reset, so.
So try ASDF.
Look at that,
So
it
you
works.
see, now my password's expired. When you add a new user, instead of
Doesn't it default to
an expired password,
expired passwords?
it defaults to expired password. We're trying to move away from, hey, the admin, let me get your password so I can go and test stuff. When it gets reset, it's one of those practices that people should avoid. Like handing over your password, presetting password, so your admin knows your password. This is one of the safety precautions that we're doing. So if you ever reset your password, if you ever an admin resets your password, you would have to reset your password again before you log in. And password policy is prevented. So there's something in the base password policy, whatever Dave, right? Yeah, Dave.
Yeah.
Whatever Dave typed in, they don't like. Of course, as an admin, I'm able to overwrite that. So that's why I was able to select ASDF. But that's, now you get to see how easy it is to join client. And if you want to join AutoMail, it's IPA-client-AutoMail. And it will set up AutoMail for you. So host groups, authentications, you're going to have your policies.
There it is.
And there's the new host. You can see that it keeps a copy of the host keys.
Can you explain the one-time password feature there on the enrollment? That part of it I'm still not clear about.
The one-time password? So the one-time password, there's an option here for a one-time password. This is for registration. If you want to register the system, you can go ahead and you can go ahead and you can add the host to FreeIPA, and then you'll set up the one-time password and give out the password to the host so it can register as that host.
Okay.
So it depends on your deployment option or your provisioning. So if he typed in a one-time password, he can go back to the system and say, I want to register, but here is the password.
So if you set the one-time password here,
You don't need the admin password too.
Yeah, you won't need the admin password.
So it'll ask you for the one-time password, or it's a command line option you have to add for the IPA client install?
I haven't done that in a long time. I know what that's what the feature is for. I just don't remember how it's done.
Gotcha.
But it is, that's the whole purpose for it.
My guess is if it finds the host record, it should know the prompt for it, because it looks it up the host, right? It doesn't create it in its own.
I remember doing it maybe like 4 or 5 years ago, and it was, the installation process was not this easy. So, it can also be for other Unix clients too. So when you're registering that way. And I'm not going to bore you and put Dave under the stress of like driving anymore. Does anybody have any questions about this?
Was that GID UID on or off?
It is a range that you're going to specify, or it's actually randomly generated, but it will remain the same.
But when you do the IPA server install, it's actually
You can
command line argument that you can specify that range.
Yep.
Now for stuff like AutoMouse, is it still putting usual files on disk, or where's it keep them?
It doesn't look up. It keeps a local cache copy in SSD, and then if anything changes, it will look out after changes. So there's nothing. You don't see any local stuff at all. All you see is NSS switch, auto mount, SSS.
I mean, anyone interested? I mean, you saw the files they was changing when you installed it. I mean, that's really the secret sauce to me. Yes, that's how the host is set up to use this whole setup. I find it very easy when you provision a host just to run that setup as part of the install script, and the host is just ready out of the box.
I mean, Satellite has this all built in by default.
Yep.
Here, I'm part of FreeIPA domain. There's a setup script. As you provision a host using Satellite, it automatically joins the realm.
Same for Spacewalk?
Not Spacewalk.
6.
Satellite 6. Telephone 4. That's it.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Dan.
What? Side _